I sometimes think social media may have accidentally made gardening far more stressful than it needs to be, not intentionally, but if you spend enough time online looking at gardening advice, eventually it can start feeling overwhelming. One person tells you to sow early, another says wait, one says never dig, another says always dig, one says feed tomatoes every week, another says hardly feed them at all. And before long, instead of feeling excited about gardening, you can easily start second guessing everything you want to do, especially beginners. Take something as simple as sowing carrots. You decide you want to grow a few rows for the kitchen. Then you open YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. One grower says sow them in March, another says April, somebody says they only grow well in raised beds, another says containers are better, one says mix seed with sand, another says use cardboard, another says cover the row with wood to help germination. And suddenly something that should feel simple starts becoming confusing. Or perhaps you've grown tomatoes in the greenhouse and now you're trying to decide when to plant them outside. The calendar says one thing, the weather forecast says another. Social media is full of growers already planting out. Another person says temperatures are about to drop again. So how do you feel confident, especially now when weather patterns no longer behave the way they used to? Then there's succession planting. When should the next sowing go in? What follows the garlic? What should replace the peas later? How do you avoid gaps appearing in beds during summer? What about crop rotation? What grew here last year? Can I grow brassicas here again? Should potatoes follow onions? Does it even matter in a smaller garden? Then companion planting enters the conversation. Can tomatoes grow near beans? Should basil go beside tomatoes? Do marigolds really help? What works well together and what doesn't? And after a while, gardening can start feeling less like relaxation and more like managing a complicated project. Social media adds another layer of pressure on top of that. Perfect beds, perfect harvests, perfect greenhouse tours, and perfect timing. But what you rarely see are the failed crops, the weeds, the delays, the weather damage, the trays of plants sitting too long in the greenhouse because life got busy. Real gardens usually don't look like social media gardens. Mine certainly doesn't. And after more than 40 years of organic growing, I'm no longer convinced they should. Nature itself is rarely tidy, but we all say it is beautiful though, don't we? Recently, I came across a couple growing organically in South Korea, and something they were doing really stayed with me. Whenever they harvested vegetables, many of the weeds, leaves, trimmings, and roots simply went straight back onto the beds where they had grown. No obsession with making everything look perfect. The soil simply stayed covered naturally. And the more I thought about it, the more it made me realize how much pressure we often put on ourselves trying to garden correctly. At the moment, here in Hungary, the greenhouse is slowly being emptied of plants that have been waiting to go outside. Tomatoes, peppers, beans, squash. Years ago, I probably would have panicked slightly looking at them all and thinking, I'm behind. I should have planted these already. Now I pay far more attention to the actual conditions instead, because warm sunny days can suddenly become cold nights again very quickly. And over the last few years, I found myself trying to keep track of more and more things in the garden. What can I sow now? What should I succession sow next? What did I grow in this bed last year? Which crops work well together? When are colder temperatures returning? What should I be planting out this week? What have I forgotten? So I started looking for a calmer way to manage all those moving parts without gardening itself becoming stressful. That's really why I created the app called Your Growing Companion, not to replace gardening, not to tell people there's only one correct way to grow food, but simply to help me stay organized and reduce some of the mental overload that modern gardening can create. The app helps with things like sowing calendars, weather and frost alerts, succession planting, crop rotation, companion planting, garden reminders, planting logs, harvest tracking, and keeping everything together in one place as the season develops. And importantly, the weather alerts and sowing calendar are completely free to use. If you want to explore the rest of the app properly, there's a 14-day free trial too. I've added a link below if you'd like to have a look, because I really do think gardening should feel grounding, not overwhelming. And perhaps one of the most important things gardeners can remember now is this: you do not need a perfect garden to be a successful gardener. Anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by gardening advice online? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, enjoy your gardens.